Hello and welcome to Kiryu Virtual Dojo. And my name's Andrew Blevins, and I'm your host today. Today, we're going to talk about 7 training strategies to accelerate your Aikido training and get the most out of your practice. And this is for everybody at any level.
When I first started Aikido over 35 years ago, I tried to train as much as possible as well as find ways to accelerate my understanding and practice in Aikido. We are going to dive into 7 of the most impactful strategies in today's foundational podcast. So let's get started.
So the first one is our milestones and goal setting.
I think setting goals in our Aikido training and in any endeavor is super important. And additionally, setting milestones along the way to help us find micro wins and smaller chunkable goals that we can set to achieve some of those bigger things that we want to face. The first thing that we focus on and we're going to talk about here is understanding our ranking guidelines. Those are what are the techniques and movements, concepts, and ideas that we're going to need to both understand, train, integrate into our own Aikido, as well as most schools do some sort of testing to ensure that the student has achieved and understood those, as well as giving them an opportunity to learn, as well as a student also having a sense of accomplishment in their own ability to demonstrate the techniques. So the next step is finding out the next set of requirements for your next test and getting a hold of your dojo's requirements. So where do we get these requirements at? First, we will have your dojo guides. Your style will have ranking. A lot of the times, if you're training through Aikikai, you can go to the Aikikai website and get those. And even if your own dojo has ranking guidelines, it's really interesting for myself to go out and kind of look through others' styles as well and kind of look like what's expected at each of those levels. And the next concept we show is don't forget the previous requirements as well. So let's say, for example, and you're working towards your 3rd kyu and you work hard and you get those down and you learn the techniques that you need to do. You integrated those movements, you work with your partners and people that helped you get to that. And then you say, okay, took my test. And then you go into, okay, now I need to start thinking and working towards my nikyu or my 2nd kyu. Well, I always say, if you really look closely at the ranking guidelines, a lot of the techniques are similar over the ranks as they go through all of those levels. So, for example, Shomunichi Ikkyo or some of those are repeated in there and a lot of basics. But again, as you get better in higher levels, that you should be having a higher level of refinement or understanding of those levels. So don't just say, okay, I'm going to the next one and learn those next cool techniques, but say, do I really understand and how can I continue to build on those as well as look at our new ones? I would also say, again, building upon the same requirements at a higher expectations. We'll kind of keep going, but always kind of look backwards as well so we can keep growing and getting better. And then last thing is getting help from your senpai and sensei. Maybe you might have questions about specific techniques. You might want to, think about what are these? Can I get help with maybe some comments or some ideas of things you can work on? Or if you want some feedback on your test or your prep, definitely, I think that's a good discussion to have or a question to have, depending on how your dojo works. And I definitely think the more open transparency there is good. As long as it's constructive feedback, and I think that we're all there to learn and grow. So that's the first one. So setting those goals, things along the way. We have some different ways of thinking about that later on down the road, but I think that's the first one is knowing what the path is ahead. The second thing we go into is journaling and taking notes. And so what does this mean? Myself, when I'm training, even after 35 years, after every single class, whether I teach or I'm training,
There's always something that has happened in class. There was interesting techniques that was talked about. I felt some of those techniques work better or they didn't. Did I have better off balance, timing, mata moai, lots of different things and insights. And so when you're having those insights, it's really good to think about what was the techniques, what was the theme. If you actually start to look at those, there's themes. There might be themes in technique attacks. There might be themes in techniques. There might be themes in concepts like off balance. So really write those down. In 5 years or 10 years, you're going to have different insights on those same ideas and concepts. But it's really interesting to go back and kind of look at where you were at and your thoughts at the time, and see that you definitely have changed and understand growth in those concepts. So definitely, it's a great experience. I also say nuggets of clarity. Sometimes you have an amazing thought during class. I know definitely when I'm teaching, I always like to teach something, a theme, but also something may come up in class where, there were some interesting dynamics between people, or some people really started to get some concepts and we really built on some energy and flowing there. So after class, sometimes I write down some of those. So that's number 2. Number 3 here is self-practice. So what is self-practice? Well, in the dojo, there's a lot of training we can get to during our normal training hours. However, there is only so many hours we can train in the dojo. This may be the case even if you come to the dojo a lot during a normal week. And so one idea is practice outside of the dojo and getting a little bit of practice out there. Do you need to be practicing 5 hours a day? This is not necessarily what this means. This means really about what we were talking about in the last one, where you may have some insights or teacher or instructor may have given you some movements to work on. Like, for example, today we worked on offline, and we would low, medium, and high on different entries and movements on katate dori. So those are practicing movements that you could practice outside the movement in, they call it shadow boxing, or kind of moving without a partner, and really integrating those offline movements and those steps, especially in the beginning when you are not as comfortable, or even as you're starting to really clarify your movements as you start to progress in Aikido. By clarity, I mean, can you tell that when somebody's doing their training that they're doing ikkyo or nikyo, and is it a mote or is it ura, right? Do they have kime? Are they moving? Are they entering? So how do you integrate and clarify those movements? And again, you can do that through practice, of course. We all need to, but also that how do you really build that into your body and movements in the hours that we have? The first, the big concept here, I call it meeting your sensei halfway. And so one of the things is your sensei comes and trains, teaches, showing you these concepts and ideas. And so then let's say you miss a week or you miss a few days and you don't come for a tile, and the sensei is really trying to progress the whole class to the next concepts or ideas. And so if everybody doesn't understand it and everybody doesn't take a little bit of time to either be there and being aware during class, or you just kind of let it flow out of your head after class, and then everybody comes back to class and you start over again, it's not necessarily wasting people's time, but it's that we all have to then start over again and do the same thing. But again, that is part of practice, is practicing the same thing over and over. But we want to continue to practice and have some sort of kind of progression there. We talked about open hand movements and entries in Rimi. I also say, get out of the house, go out, get out of the dojo and go out into nature. We practice on the beach every Sunday. We practice on the parks a few times a week. You can go in the mountains. You can go in your backyard. Lots of different places to practice. You can also practice inside your house, depending on your facilities. I had a friend a long time ago who was practicing saburi and doing men strikes in his house, and he had a very low ceiling. And so a lot of times he would hit his ceiling. So then he started to kind of hybridize his thing. And then he started to have a really strange menuchi because he was kind of pulling it to the side because he didn't want his roof. So you don't necessarily want to build bad habits. And also would say this is a great opportunity for you to go and work out with some of your fellow students, or maybe there's another dojo in town or different people that get together from your dojo and practice. I know many years I practiced in the park with some of my other students or people that were just wanting to learn some of the new techniques or katas or weapons or things like that. And so we'd meet once a week or once every few weeks, and that was definitely a really good. I also encourage that with my students, and I know a lot of my students get together outside of the dojo and practice together, and that's really nice. It kind of goes back to meeting your sensei halfway, is that when they come back to train and we're learning those, really we can start getting into really what is Aikido. The next one, number 4, seminars and workshops.
Seminars are a great resource for Aikido students and instructors. Over the many years that I've been training, I really have gone to a lot of seminars that I really enjoyed and gotten a lot out of, both from technical perspectives of new styles and Aikido techniques that I haven't seen before, or different ways of approaching problems and movements that I haven't seen or felt, and being able to work with lots of different styles and different people, sizes, technical levels, really helps enhance and increase your level of Aikido in a short amount of time. And then that goes back to that journaling too, that make sure to, if you really learn something, especially from people you may not see very often, write down maybe some of those ideas and concepts. Workshops are usually can be from other dojos too, but you can also have workshops in your own dojo. And don't forget, those are really nice times that maybe go outside of your normal dojo flow and ideas. It gives you some opportunity to really maybe focus on some things that are either the concepts of the month or concepts that are getting ready for testing, but also, maybe some ideas and concepts that you don't normally get to during the year. So keep an eye open for those, and also in your neighborhood or your area, so that you can collaborate with other dojos. And I put in here working with new people. This is important, is that, Aikido is a community, and one of the goals of Kiryu Virtual Dojo and my concept and idea is that, how are we going to grow and keep Aikido alive? And part of that is learning to appreciate others' Aikido, appreciate the community within Aikido itself, and also the community in our own neighborhoods and areas. So you see lots of pictures here with getting together with different dojos and learning from other senseis and growing and also sharing each other's Aikidos and experiences together. The next one is focusing on your Ukemi. So why, of course, Ukemi is a core component of Aikido. We fall. Ukemi is the art of falling or falling. And why is that important, and how does that help boost and accelerate our training? We take falls every class, and we need to learn how to fall generally. And so the better we get at that, and the better we get at that earlier on in our Aikido career, the more falls we can take at a higher level, and whether that's break falls or taking harder falls, on a safe progression path there. But also that Ukemi is also learning to be aware and being prepared to be an uke, being ready ahead of when you're being needed, or sensei may be saying, okay, I'm ready to teach weapons, and you're already, you're their main uke, and you go grab their weapon and give it to them without them saying, can you go get the weapon, right? Those kinds of ideas and concepts. We talked about this first thing. It says Chirimo Tsumore ba Yamato Naru, means even dust can accumulate into mountains. And so that means earlier on, the more Ukemi training you get, you're going to, it's just going to grow and grow into where you're really able to take some really nice falls and protect yourself, and also learn how to really use and be part of the Aikido experience. So the next part is physical and mental conditioning. The more we take, the stronger we're going to get in our core, our stomach, and in our core area, and our neck areas, and we're tucking our chin, and we're learning how to really, protect ourselves and integrating that as part of our movements and ideas. When you take a fall, or there's more energy that you're given, or
there's an accident, or you fall off a ladder, or you fall off your bike, or you fall on the ice, or you slip on the ice, does your body automatically move into those Ukemi style movements that help protect you as much as possible? Part of that's that conditioning. And I remember students coming to ask me, especially when we were doing lots of Ukemi training, and they would say, well, how do I get it to where Ukemi doesn't hurt anymore? And unfortunately, the answer is, I don't know if it ever goes away, but I think that as over time you mentally condition yourself that the pain is not necessarily felt anymore, and it not necessarily hurt pain, just kind of stinging. So it's kind of like when we take ukemi at the beginning of class and our legs are coming, hitting the ground and slapping the ground, maybe, or slapping with our hands. Eventually your body kind of integrates that, and it's not jarring anymore, and thus it really doesn't hurt, even though maybe if you pay attention to it, maybe it is. And then I guess would say is that, why is this accelerate your training? This now goes into, as you get becoming a better uke, you'll probably be pulled up as an uke in front of class more often, or from your teacher, and or even at seminars. And the more you get pulled in as an uke, the more ukemi you're going to get. But also you get to train. It's one thing seeing your sensei do movements, but it's another thing of feeling what your sensei or your senpai are doing when they're throwing, right? And so when you feel that, and you feel the movement and the off balance and the power and the kokyu, then you really get to really feel and integrate what Aikido is, right? I always like to, when I go train at seminars, if any way possible, I try to figure out how to volunteer to be in an uke, even if there's some really high level senseis where sometimes you look at their Aikido and it's very subtle and there's very subtle movements, and kind of your thought process is like, that's interesting. Our style, really big movements with hips and power. But again, sometimes you see the subtle stuff and you're like, well, how does that really work? See, so, but when you feel it and you get to grab and you get to attack and you get to have commitment in their attacks, then you really feel like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. It still takes a long time to learn, but Kemi is a wonderful way to do that. So the better you're at that, you're going to get pulled in more, you get to feel more, and then you get to learn more as a Nage or overall Aikido. 6 here is gamification. So what is gamification? This is just a concept I came up with. Nowadays, people play games long time or do things long time, and sometimes, especially when you're in Aikido, it's hard work. It's a lot of time commitment. It's also, I would say, somewhat complex martial art, and it takes a long time to learn those fine motor skills. And so, I think sometimes people are overwhelmed, or maybe bummed out, or maybe just not as much fun. And part of that is that maybe their only goal is their rank, right? And regardless of what that means, rank isn't everything, nor is it important, but it is important that there are milestones and goals that we can integrate into our practice, and also that gives us goals to work on and techniques to work on throughout the time. So that's not just the only measurement. What can be measured in Aikido? And this is really something for you to think about and you to really integrate. And I would love to hear your thoughts. So comments or communicate with us, let us know. I'd love to know what you practice or track, and do you do anything outside of the normal, just pure rank? So one example is numbers of classes. And I remember when I was going to training, 6 or 7 days a week, and I would remember my dojo computer, and we would go to the dojo and you type in your dojo number, and then you would go in and it would say, okay, you got 3 classes tonight. And so then I would always click on the little button, click numbers of classes, and you'd see all your classes go out. And while that's not a big deal, and you say, okay, it's kind of fun, but I always like to just see, personally, me, I like to see, hey, I'm working towards this number. I didn't care about the number that I was working toward. I just saw that it was nice to see that I was progressing. Another thought with that is, last few years, I've been doing swimming, and our swimming area has a fun thing called 100 miles, 100-mile swim. That's 100 miles over a year. One of the things that you do at the end of your your swim is then you go and fill out how many miles or how many laps you got, and then they calculate the number of miles. And I would set up a spreadsheet and say, okay, how many miles do I have every week and every month, and how far? So, and every month you really get to know, hey, how far am I getting to my goal of 100 miles? Am I going to exceed it, which is where you always want to be, or am I behind? So maybe I got to get into a few extra swims this month. That really helped both motivate me. It was fun. And that place did a t-shirt, and I always say that was probably the most expensive t-shirt I ever bought. I'm joking around, but we got the 100 miles and it was a lot of fun. Being able to see where you are along the path really helped. And the miles or the numbers really don't mean anything, but it also helps keep your brain fresh and at least on track. And also, what are the different types of categories? And we say number of practices, types, rank, techniques. When I say new techniques, maybe it's new katas or new kumitachis or relations, or learning groups of exercises or things together really, I think, can help. And the last thing I would say is, once you set these goals for yourself, make sure to celebrate success. We're going to be doing Aikido a long time and we enjoy it, but it's also good to celebrate success. One of the nice things we always like to do as a dojo is go out to eat as a group. A lot of times, a lot of people go out after testing. I like to do that. And also, it's a great feeling. People have the stress off. They feel accomplished. They've done their test. It's over with. And we all celebrate that. We all towards it, and we're also getting together as a dojo or with other dojos, and get to talk and enjoy each other's company and talk Aikido or whatever. But again, it's celebrating that success, I think, is important. Gamification can be whatever you want it to be. I don't mean that Aikido is not serious and that you shouldn't take it seriously, but also that you as an individual should be taking this on and thinking about what are the things that you want to do and what are your goals, and how do you achieve those goals that help you ultimately learn Aikido and enjoy Aikido over a long period of time. We talked about earlier the road to 10,000 hours in Aikido, and can you master something that you've done for 10,000 hours? That's a goal you can set, and that could be your macro goal, but maybe the micro goals are your first 100 classes or your first 20 classes, and you learn the first 3 katas. So really break up those things and make it fun. So number 7, we're getting near the end here, is online dojos and resources. And we added an 8th bonus here, but the first thing is, what are other resources you can bring in to supplement your training? And when I say supplement, I would say that, training, of course, is number 1, and getting to the dojo, getting to practice, right? So how do you get more out of your practice? First thing is different books, learning different books, reading them. There's different perspectives you learn, especially from different styles, different experiences. We all like to hear stories and ideas about experiences. It's better through stories, of course. And so there's some fun story ones. For example, Ink Red Pajamas, there's some interesting ones in there, or there's background of biographies. Right now I'm finishing up and kind of writing notes on the life in Aikido about Sensei and his long journey in Aikido and how he created it and all the things along the way. Or Aikido Diary, for example, is another one where all the different things that happen in a dojo and all the different events and ideas that happen in a dojo and how those integrate into the culture of Aikido and what those mean, and taking those meanings and adding that as part of your training. What are some other resources? Hopefully your own dojo has different resources. I know we have a beginner's guide that we give to our students. There may be a beginner's packet. I remember my first Aikido dojo, I still have my Aikido packet, and it's like a scanned copy that was scanned like 300 times, and it can barely read it. And it has all these great articles and snippets from newspapers and movements that you're supposed to do, and maybe your first few ranks. Ask your dojo to see if there's something there for you. We're actually working on a beginner's guide, and we'll be putting that out here really soon, and we would love to hear your thoughts, and I think it would be very helpful for you as well. So we'll put a link on once we got that completed. It's very close. Also, does your organization. So Aikikai has ranking. There might be maybe your own organization's website might have some videos on YouTube for your style of techniques or Ukemi or weapons. So definitely ask your senpai and sensei, or check out your own website for your dojo to see what you have on there. You can also come to kiryuaikido.com. We always are going to be building that out and adding more resources there. If there's something you would like to see, put in the comments what guides are you looking for. And keep an eye on all the new content that we'll be bringing out here in the next few months. There's also lots of social media sites that are devoted to Aikido, martial arts, and so many other topics I think are interesting, including YouTube, which, just like you found us here, be sure to like and subscribe so you get our latest content. But there's a lot of content out there, and part of the fun is going out and finding some of your favorite channels and sources out there as well. And lastly, I think would say communities, and communities are out there. We're still looking for all the different communities out there. I know over 35 years, communities have come and go. Community in your own dojo website. Maybe you also have your physical community of your dojo. And also we're looking at communities for Kiryu Aikido and all of us, you as well. So maybe we all can get together and share ideas and concepts or techniques learned together in the journey of Aikido. The bonus we talked about is learning our Japanese, and really basic Japanese. And why does this help us learn and boost our Aikido? Is it definitely necessary for Aikido? Probably not. But is it helpful? Definitely yes. Japanese and basic vocab, again, a lot of Aikido guides, our beginner's guide, really have vocabulary that you need to learn, technique names, Irimi nage, shihonage, kodegai, concepts, omote and ura, front and behind, and what do we say during class, bound to class, onegai shimasu, or rei, or domo arigatou gozaimashita, or, thank you very much. How do you address people, something san, or Andrew Sensei, or whatever your sensei's, maybe last name or first names, right? Of course, formal, you always use last names if you're not sure. Learning those vocabulary and hearing those, our school, I try to always use Japanese that I know while we're practicing over and over and over. And again, it's not necessarily to get people to memorize them, but get people to understand that this sounds and these concepts go along with these concepts and practice and techniques that we're learning right now. And so that's really the whole concept. And eventually over time, during tests or whatever, say, okay, hai shomanuchi ikkyo, right? Okay, I know they're going to do technique or the attack, shomanuchi, ikkyo, and then you may do omote and ura as part of the technique, numbers and all that kind of stuff. Learning those. And then part of the learning of basic vocabulary is actually maybe learning a little bit of Japanese and the pronunciation of that. And the more we get a little bit more comfortable with that, we can have a nice way to get better and better about pronunciating Japanese. Learning the basic sounds, a, I, U, E, O, and the different expansions from there. And then they only have so many sounds and how those sounds go together. I think definitely Kiryu Virtual Dojo is going to be doing some of that, and we're going to be excited to share some of that with you all. So that's really why we learn some Japanese or some basic sounds and words. And so those are our basic 7, plus we had an extra one there. So, just a quick review, getting those goals going, understanding those in your ranks, taking notes along the way, and really making sure to kind of mind map those and get those so you don't forget as much over time or have a resource to go back to. Practicing on our own and taking a little bit of ownership in your own training, and to take what you've been taught by your senpai and sensei and your dojo to learn more about that. Get more into our seminars and workshops and learn some focused training, community training, and get more out of our practice. We learned about our Ukemi and getting integrated into our Ukemi practice and learning that, following and how to be a good uke and following and feeling those techniques, we're going to learn a lot faster of Aikido. Gamifying our practice journey, having a little fun with it, understanding what can be measured, and just kind of keep an eye on where you are in the whole journey. And again, the journey is what you're focusing on, not the final goal. Our last one was here is different resources, our books, your dojo resources, your organization resources, online resources, and community. And then lastly, how do we integrate and work with our communities and learn from our communities from there?
Wrapping this up and looking at our virtual dojo blueprint, see that it's all really about your journey and the transformation in Aikido that we're all striving to achieve. And so how do we accelerate that and enjoy the journey along the way? And this is what these 7 strategies and tips are all about. I hope you got something out of it, and I really got a lot out of, sharing my thoughts as well as diving deep into some of these thoughts and subjects. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and please come back soon because we'll have more content all about that Aikido journey.